boys and girls, it's time we talk about this thing now, man. It's time we talk about this Everton game. And on a reflection of what has happened, has really sent shockwaves through the fan base. And if we go back to my original tweet, where before the game I saw the team sheet, I looked at that midfield, and I could only think that Rafa Benitez would have turned around to his players and said, guys, I think my friend Arteta has just given me an early Christmas present. That's what I said that Arteta did. He gave Everton an early Christmas present by playing the two midfielders. And so we'll cover the midfielders off first, and then we'll go on to the strikers. So Thomas Partey, who has not been playing well since he's come back from injury. I had said his player ratings over the last 3 games was 2 4s and a 3. And he just looked abysmal. Absolutely off the scale. And the midfield was being carried by Sambi for most of the part. And then he plays Xhaka. Now, here's the deal before we talk about Xhaka, and I'm being subjective here. When a player comes back from injury, a player has to go through match fitness. So it's twofold. You just don't get the green light from the doctors and say, you're fit now, you can return to training. When you return to training, there is a lengthy process of getting yourself up to game speed. Yeah? So even for long-scaled injuries, under Wenger, under Emery, and what we've seen before, a player that returns back to training is still at least 2 to 4 weeks away from playing in the first team. So Arsenal sends a message out 48 hours before this game saying Xhaka has returned to training. That's fine. Xhaka's returned to training. He's been healing really well and brilliant. Well done on him and well done to the medical staff. But by no means did anybody think that Xhaka was going to start in that game. Because if he did start in that game against Everton, as a fan, the concern was that you'd have Thomas Partey, who has not been up to speed since he's come back and doesn't have the range, the speed or anything. And then Xhaka, who's come in, who isn't 100%, and he's definitely not match fit, regardless whether he's healed from the injury or not. That's not the case. We're talking about match fitness now. He wouldn't be at the level that he would need to be in order to play a game of this magnitude. Now, so you've got 2 holding midfielders who are a liability. That's your whole midfield right there, who are a liability. And Everton took that and ran with it. They looked at the team sheet and thought, this is the best chance that we have of getting 3 points because we ain't won in 7 games. And all this, guys, was pre-match. The kickoff hadn't started yet. This was just my analysis pre-match. And it played out exactly as I thought it would. It played out exactly as I thought it would. Now, let's not slander Partey and Xhaka now. Let's move them on. Let's get rid of them. So the problem is here is that Sambi was rested at the game before. Sambi only came on as a substitute. So he had already been rested. Now Sambi had 2 man of the match performances in the last 4 games. And before that, Maitland-Niles, who we ain't seen. Has anybody seen Maitland-Niles? I ain't seen him. Maitland-Niles had man of the match against Watford. So in the last 6 games, this is where we are right now. This shows you how bad the Everton team sheet was. In the last 6 games, 3 of those man of the match performances were fulfilled by 2 of your young midfielders. And you didn't start them in a game of this magnitude, a game that you had to win, a game that was laid out there. I don't know whether Arteta looked at Everton and thought, this is a perfect opportunity to put Xhaka in to get him up to game speed. It was actually the perfect opportunity for Everton to actually win and get 3 points because they took advantage of what Arteta did. And this loss solemnly has to be put on the shoulders of Arteta, simply because this team was not good enough. Let's move on to the strikers now, because this is pivotal and this is really important. So last week, we all slandered Thierry Henry because he said you don't take off your main striker when you need a goal in the last 10 minutes. Now, we all agree that it was probably the right thing to do because Aubameyang was not performing. Yeah. Now, if your main striker is performing, then you can't take him off. So then Thierry Henry has a point. I made a video before the Everton game, and it was titled Aubameyang and Pepe. What do we do with them? My concern with both players was there is nobody who can replace Aubameyang because Lacazette in the last 3 games has been average. And my hypothesis with that seemed to have been correct because Lacazette started the game and he did nothing. He 4 out of 10 performance. He did nothing. He did absolutely nothing. What did he do for 90 minutes? He didn't do anything. Shots, creativity, that weren't him. He did nothing. And while defensively he came into the midfield and sort of put himself about a little bit, as a main striker, your job is to get on the end of everything in the box and score goals. And I think the confusion with Lacazette's performance was when Aubameyang's in the team, Lacazette he's Robin to Aubameyang's Batman. But when Aubameyang ain't there, we need you to be Batman. You can't be Robin as the main striker. You can't be a sidekick when you're the main striker. When we need you to be the anchor man and trouble the Everton defence and create everything, and when a ball comes in from the side, being on that 6-yard line to convert any of the chances, you weren't doing that. You didn't step up and take that responsibility. You was in the shadows being a sidekick. And we were absolutely toothless. We didn't even look like scoring. And that was the crux of how frustrating it was for Arsenal, who didn't even have a shot on goal in the first half. And that was my fear. That was my concern before the game, is that you start someone like Lacazette, who, in my opinion, ain't been in great form. Why would you do that? And that's the reason why I said start Nketiah. And when Nketiah came on, he did more in his little time when he came on than Lacazette did for the whole game. He played a beautiful ball. He was in the midfield, picked up the ball on the halfway line, played a beautiful through ball to Martin Odegaard and on the penalty spot, and Martin Odegaard fluffed his lines. Nketiah narrowed that ball through 3 defenders to get the ball into space to Odegaard. He then went on to hit the post, which Nketiah should have scored. Let's all be fair, he should have scored. And then in the 90th minute, in injury time, Nketiah again runs through 2 midfielders, puts the ball on the plate for Aubameyang, and Aubameyang missed the target. So for all this talk that Nketiah is this, Nketiah ain't good enough, Nketiah, he certainly looked like he was good enough when he came on. In the little 10 minutes that he had, he certainly did enough, which I thought, to help win the game. Now, Nketiah is always going to have these naysayers. He's always going to have people that are saying he's not good enough. But this is why I wanted him to start, because when I saw Nketiah in pre-season on the left, on the wing, what we saw against Everton was exactly what he was doing. Because he had that ability to play with the ball at his feet, take players on, come inside. His movement, as we know, is very, very good. But the fact that he has rejected 3 contracts tells you where Eddie Nketiah's head is. He's done. He wants no part of this. Because Everton was again another game that he should have played. He should have started in that game. If you're trying to empower a player and telling them how important they are to the team, and you're part of our future and we need you to, putting them in the game for 10 minutes isn't gonna, 10, 15 minutes isn't really gonna inspire a young player to want to play for Arsenal. And I get this feeling, this is the reason why Maitland-Niles was the way he was. Now, great, because you put him on before the Watford game, and in the Watford game you started him. But since Watford, where's Maitland-Niles? How are you going to put an unmatched fit, let's not say unfit, yeah, because he's been passed for fitness, but his match fitness wasn't there. So how are you going to put a player like Xhaka, who's not match fit, and Niles has been match fit for months, and you're not played him? Sambi, standout performance in the midfield in the last month. You've not played him. How does this empower younger players? And I'm all about the younger players. I'm on the movement. I'm trusting the process. But with the older players, there's no process. There's no process with the veteran players. And these players are letting you down. Now, granted, Lacazette was fantastic against Spurs when he came on. He threw his fist up in the... But he ain't done really nothing ever since. Aubameyang's been missing for a month now. Partey, 4 games. And Xhaka did nothing when he came on. So your veteran players, we're back to where we are now with the Emery and the Wenger thing. We've seen the youth movement in Arsenal, and as the fans have all been inspired by the performances and the results. Everton results showed us why we shouldn't be trusting the veteran players. We shouldn't be playing the veteran players. We shouldn't be making them a part of the process. They're done. Get out of here. They're done. The only way forward for this team's success, guys, is if you play those young players. That's it. There's no other way. This thing cannot work any other way. So I've been on the bandwagon because I've been seeing this movement, this youth movement, which has been impeccable. And even when we haven't played well, these guys have worked their asses off. Yeah? They've worked their asses off. What you saw against Everton was everything that has been wrong with this club over the last few years. Even before Arteta got here. And I've got some advice for you, Mikel Arteta. If you have any hopes of being successful this season, and this is your last warning, because you kind of got away with it last season. Last season, you brought in Smith Rowe, you brought in Odegaard, and it completely changed your fortunes. We went from the worst, one of the worst, I think it was 18th in creativity. We went from one of the worst creative teams to one of the best. And we had the second most points in the latter half of the season. If you're regressing back to where you was previously before, then you have got no hope this season. None. And I predicted that the team would finish 8th because of this. Yeah? With the young kids, it started looking like 6th place was on the tabs, top 4 even for some people. But if this is who you are right now with this midfield, which I already quoted, by the way, was the worst midfield over the last few seasons. No doubt about it. And I will not change my stance from that. I said the midfield is trash. It needs changing. And fair dues to you, you went out and bought Sambi. You went out, and Sambi's been carrying Partey this season. He's been carrying him. Sorry, guys. He's been carrying Partey. And Xhaka hasn't been a part of the success of this season. It's been well said and well documented that 11 of the last 12 wins have come without Granit Xhaka. So if you're implementing these guys back into the team, you're done. You're going to have a midfield that's going to get run over game after game after game. They're going to get run down, overrun, outplayed by every team you play if this is your midfield. The last thing, guys, I want to talk about is Nicolas Pepe. Sometimes you make a decision that costs you. And a couple of years back, Mesut Ozil was dropped. And Arsenal's shots on goal, chances created, fell from being a top 5 team to one of the worst. We went from averaging 17 chances in a game to less than 12. And that never, ever improved. Because as you guys know, Mesut Ozil never played a part in the team again. And funny enough, we've never looked the same team since. So we talk about, first of all, Smith Rowe wasn't in the game against Everton. So, fair dues. He's the second highest goal scorer in the team. So fair dues to that. But Pepe, as I said, 26 goals and 18 assists over 2 seasons. You're taking out a guy that has averaged 13 goals and 9 assists in a season. And you're taking that productivity out of the team. And that's a threat to other teams. And you're against Everton, you looked at the field and you was like, where's the goal coming from? How are we going to score? And I know dropping the striker is making a point, dropping the captain, Aubameyang, is making a point. But at some stage through the game, after half an hour, I was like, boy, you know what? Maybe it wasn't the smartest thing to drop Aubameyang, because I don't even know what's going on. Even Aubameyang in his worst form will offer you something. At least he'll run into the box and he'll get on the end of stuff. We digressed from that. We didn't even have a player running into the box doing anything. And when you looked at the goal that was scored, it came from, again, a cross from Kieran Tierney, but Martin Odegaard was the one that took the onus. There wasn't really any threat coming from anybody else. And there's good news ahead, obviously. There is a hope that Sambi can come back into the team. Smith Rowe will come back into the team. But those are 2 players. To not have Tavares there, that's going to limit us a little bit. To not have Pepe there, that's going to limit us a lot. And quite frankly, I don't know where the prospects of the team are going to be. I think that the manager so badly wants to get back to this point with these players in the team, get back to that whole sort of team he had last year. And the success of the team, the foundation that was built over those young players, I'm not sure if he's going to go in that direction. And I worry about that. I really do. So that's where I'm going to leave it, guys. I really don't know where the prospects for these teams is going to be this season. And I have to say, from that standpoint, Mikel Arteta, what have you done? Speak to you later, guys. Peace out. Right back at you, man. Nice one.